Hello and welcome to this edition of The Interview on France 24. I'm Robert Parsons. It's one of the most controversial topics of our times. Are whistleblowers heroes or traitors? Are they a danger to the societies we live in or a necessary corrective to the ever-creeping powers of the state? The recent disclosures by former CIA employee and National Security Agency contractor Edward Snowden of alleged massive snooping by the NSA, both inside and outside the United States, have fueled a passionate international debate. A debate which has been joined by our guest today, the French journalist and author Florence Hartmann, who has just written a book called The Whistleblowers, The Bad Consciences of Our Democracies. Well, Florence, thanks very much for being with us on France 24 today. But I'd like to start with you, if I could, because some people might consider you a whistleblower too for a book that you wrote back in 2007, in which you incurred the wrath of the International Tribunal for the former Yugoslavia, which you used to work for as well. By revealing the legal reasoning behind its decision to black out and exclude passages from documents revealing Serbia's involvement in the Bosnian War of the 1990s. Does that make you a whistleblower?
No, I don't think so, because I've been indicted and convicted for a few sentences in a 300 or 400 pages book on something which was the subject of an investigation I made after I left the tribunal, and which could have been made by any other journalist. It was a public subject, but there were some elements of the story which were not clarified, and I just decided to go further. And a whistleblower would be someone who knew something from his job. So if I had said something while I was at the tribunal, disclosed something I was not entitled to disclose, I would have been a whistleblower, but that was not the case for what I've been indicted and convicted.
What are the essentials for you that make a whistleblower?
A whistleblower is someone who has specific knowledge from inside. It's a kind of insider from in a company or in an administration, governmental or not, and knows that, assess that it is a violation of something, the violation of an abuse, a violation of legality or whatsoever, a crime, and think that there is no legitimacy for secrecy. And the secrecy is to cover up some abuse. So bring the information to the public, sometimes first inside the company in order to fix it. But if there is no answer or the mechanism inside the company are not functioning, so they take the public opinion as a witness of what is going on in order to fix it. They are no revolutionary, they are no dissident, because they are not against the system. They are wishing that the system is functioning as it is expected in democracy.
There's always going to be a tension, isn't there, in democracies between the interests of the state and the interests of society. Does that mean that it'll always be necessary, there will always be a role for whistleblowers in society?
Only when there is a big problem. It's very, very clear and very easy to look when you look back since, the first whistleblower with the name of whistleblower with Daniel Ellsberg at the time of the Pentagon Papers. Until now, you have a lot of whistleblowers on issues which are not solved by the government, so by whoever is due to whether it is on environmental issues, on medical issues, on governmental issues. And now we have, for instance, Snowden and Manning in relation to, for Manning crimes committed by Western armies, in this case the US Army. But that was something the newspaper were trying to clarify, already looking into it for many years, but they were always getting the problem of the denial from the government, saying that that was not true, and they couldn't help to solve the problem by informing the public. So at one point, someone said, well, if we want that to stop, whether was it the good person or not, did it in the best way or not? That's another problem. But there was really a need to have the issue of the violation made by the U.S. Army, which, I don't think that the U.S. citizen did really support that.
Looking at one of the chapters of your book about Daniel Ellsberg, the man famous for the Pentagon Papers back in 1971, one thing that struck me is that today, all these years later, we don't really consider him a controversial figure at all. In fact, we regard the court case that looked at what he had done by the revelation of the Pentagon Papers as being almost as a cornerstone for press freedom in the United States today. I wonder, do you think this is the way, in years from now, decades from now, that we'll also look at what Bradley Manning, Chelsea Manning, and Edward Snowden have done?
I think so, because there is a very basic rule. It's you always prefer the whistleblowers from the other side, if it's not coming from your own country. It's easier for the European to support Snowden than it is for the US, for instance, and it would be exactly the opposite if Snowden was a French, for instance. And it's easier also when you have some historical distance, because you can have your own opinion on the value of the documents or the information which was brought to the public with a violation of some confidentiality at one point. So today I think it's very easy to assess, even if we have only a few years or a few months for Manning and Snowden. But policy is very involved, and the government of the US, as if it was a European government in the same situation, wouldn't like to accept. But it's already clear for them, but we need more time.
Can I just ask you this question? Don't you see a qualitative difference between Daniel Ellsberg and, say, Manning or Snowden? You know, Ellsberg was dealing with something very concrete, the Pentagon Papers, a case in which the United States governments had deceived the people and Congress. Yeah. What Bradley Manning, for instance, doing was totally different. He's mass scattergun effect. He's releasing thousands and thousands of papers. In a way, Edward Snowden as well, 1.7 million documents. They're very different cases, aren't they? I'm
not sure, because Ellsberg had the Pentagon Papers, which is a report made by the U.S. government, the military, on the basis of hundreds of thousands documents. So there was an analysis. And if no one had done this Pentagon Papers, maybe Ellsberg would have come with hundreds of papers.
But we don't have Bradley Manning or Chelsea Manning claiming he did an analysis of the documents he put out, the ones that were released on WikiLeaks.
Okay, for Manning, we can see that he was willing to inform the public. He didn't know what to show, and so he took everything. And and we could have. It was clear when WikiLeaks had this document all together like that, they couldn't use it. The public had access, but with no use. You needed the media, the journalists, to explain, to put everything into the context. Otherwise, it's not readable. In the case of Snowden, it's very different, because he learned from Ellsberg, from Manning, the mistakes Manning did, for instance. And he took a lot of documents. None of them, the three of them, did publish everything they had, because they assessed by themselves, okay, maybe they were wrong or not, but they assessed the documents which would not cause damage for the national security. Did they do it right or wrong? We will see. But Snowden needed a lot of technical documents summarizing the mechanism of what he was explaining. And until now, we had, as for the problem of Iraq and Afghanistan disclosed by Manning. In the case of Snowden and the NSA, we had a lot of documents, a lot of articles in the press trying to explain, trying to alert, but it was not sufficient. Everyone was denying. So he took with a special care the documents explaining precisely this functioning that no one could deny. That's why he needed so many documents. Should we ask why did it take so many documents, why the system is so big? I mean, it's proportional in a way. So I don't think there is a big difference in the three of them, and especially between Ellsberg and Snowden.
Very briefly, I mean, literally in a nutshell, hero or traitor? That's what the big debate is about, Day. How do you see it? Very briefly.
My book is to explain that the answer is in between.
Yeah. Okay. France Achtman, thanks very much for being with us today on the interview on France 24. That's all we have time for on this edition, but do stay with us. More news and headlines to come.